So first thing is first. So USD, we anticipated, or at least I was anyway, some strength yesterday. Price was coming back into some nice healthy areas of support. And I was looking to see if we could get a bounce from this area. And we did get a bounce. We were trading, I believe, in the zone last time we were live. So yesterday, of course. And then price did manage to react with that. We did see a nice bullish move. However, didn't really get going. We did see some weakness step in overnight there, but the bias is still the same. If price can remain above 100.4, I am still looking for continuation to the upside for the dollar. And of course, that would take us naturally back to the highs here if we really do see that swing. So that would take us back into roughly the 102 area. So I'm still pretty bullish with the DXY. This is the 4-hour chart. We're still seeing higher highs and higher lows. Again, long term, I'm still pretty bearish on the dollar. My kind of expectation for the dollar is that we've had this very bearish move here. I'm simply looking for the correction of that. Preferably, I'm looking at this kind of 50 area here on the fib, which lines up pretty well with that range there, 103, 104. Ideally, would like to see a retracement kind of into that area potentially before we do continue this bearish journey. We've taken out some major lows here. The market's pretty overextended. So I don't really want to be shorting at these prices anyway. This is major support. I would expect a lot of buying pressure at these areas. So I'm still having that bullish bias. But I do think the bigger move is going to follow back to the downside. So anticipating a little bit more strength for some long-term weakness. So that's kind of how I'm looking to tackle the dollar right now. And of course, as I've highlighted, we're still putting in some bullish structure. But because we did fail to really continue yesterday, potentially might be seeing price come back for another retest potentially. So we could be seeing potentially a double bottom, and there could be some nice entries there on the back of that. So maybe shorting euro, shorting pound, or Aussie dollar. We'll take a look at those pairs in a moment. So that's kind of what I'm favoring there for the DXY. If we were to break through and continue to the downside, then of course I will relax that bias, especially probably if we get below this trend line here as well as below that resistance level. That would put me off the trade, and perhaps maybe dollar is going to be bearish sooner than expected, and maybe we just kind of drift back to the lows there. But for now, still very bullish, still above that kind of 100 level. I think that's a pretty significant level of support, and as long as we remain above that, I still do expect some strength to come into the market. So temporarily, I am bullish here with the dollar. Going over to EURUSD, basically the same situation. I'm bearish with EURUSD, expecting to see a push down. I do think, again, long term, we can still see more upside. It's the same situation, basically. If I whip out the fib from the low to the high, you can see the 50 lines up pretty well with that range there. That's kind of the area which I want to see Euro pull back into before perhaps maybe we do decide to continue to the upside. We've taken up major highs here, so this is not the area which I want to be buying into. Not only have we had a very intense bullish move that has stretched the market quite a lot, but we've also taken up major highs. So this for me is kind of bearish territory. So at least from a swing perspective anyway, that's not really where I want to take some buys and hold them for potentially a number of days. Of course, if you're intraday, you can take a buy here. If you're in and out within the day, you should be fine. Because you're not looking for any prolonged move. But if you're looking to buy and hold a trade, not the best position for that. We want price to come back down into bullish territory, into areas of support, demand, like this area here, to potentially take it back up again. So that's really what I'm looking for EURUSD. And of course, since then, we've had this bit of a decline there. And I'm looking for that to continue, essentially. Price just missed out on some resistance just above us here. This was the level I was speaking on yesterday. That would be nice if price could retest that. Or did we? Okay, maybe we just about spiked into it. Yeah, I'll give that. We just about spiked into a pip. So it was a nice reaction yesterday off that level. I thought we missed it there. But no, price just about tested that level. Nice reaction yesterday. Again, I still think we have room to the downside back into these lows. And again, potentially back into the zone, which I just highlighted on the weekly chart. So if you're looking for an entry for that, ideally, a push back to resistance would be the best, so you can get some stop losses above the high here. And of course, that'll put you in a better position to maximize your risk reward as well. Should we see that swing back into support, well, you're positioned very high up, a lot of room to the downside to capitalize on, and you can keep your risk fairly small in terms of the stop loss as well. So yeah, EURUSD expecting another drop to the downside. Of course, this is very dependent on what the dollar is going to do. If the DXY does find support in the area we just spoke about, and that should help euro take a bit of a dump as well. But I'm still looking for downside there for euro. We've been pretty consistent with these lower highs, 1, 2, 3. I am looking for perhaps a fourth for, again, another move down. So that's my take there on euro over the next few days. Pound USD, same situation as well. We spoke about this trend line here. It looks like price respected it pretty well yesterday. We had the first test over there, second test over there, and there was our third. I'm still expecting a bit more downside, at least back into support. Again, my take for pound USD is very, very similar to my take for Euro USD in terms of I do think the longer term move is likely to be to the upside for pound as well. But at the moment, we're really struggling at resistance here. You can look to our left, massive move to the downside. Price is now revisiting that area again. And you can see for the past 3 weeks, 1, 2, 3, we've left a lot of wicks there to the upside. Fairly quite exaggerated wicks there. So it's a key sign to tell us that pound is struggling at these highs, and perhaps the market could be getting ready for a move down. Of course, this week's candle's still live, so I'm not really going to take it into consideration how it's looking. It is Thursday, so we are coming to the end of the week. But it's still live and could still look a lot different. The key thing is that resistance is still holding. So I do think there's still more downside for pound USD. Of course, if we do rally and break through the trend line and that zone, I'll be mistaken and I'll look to reanalyze and perhaps maybe we see a big rally. But for now, I do like the shorts. So in terms of entries for pound, again, ideally you want price to be at that trend line, at that resistance. So you kind of want to see price push back into that area. If you want to find some entries to swing it back down, I wouldn't really be looking for entries in this kind of area, just because my stop loss will be a bit more vulnerable. If I have a stop loss up there, very easy to get spiked out and see price continue in my favor. Whereas if I can get stop loss above the high here, of course, I'm not immune. I could still get wigged out and price could still continue my favor, but price has to work a lot harder to do that. And if price was to get there, it probably is a situation where we're breaking to the upside anyway. So I would just have a much safer stop loss if it can be around that area rather than some highs here. But yeah, that would be a nice place for a short, and again, expecting a push back into support there. In terms of for dollar CAD, we had a nice bounce for this one. I spoke about price coming back to retest the channel basically. So we had the resistance there, retest the support. Price did a good job earlier. Not earlier. I was going to say earlier this week. It was actually a couple of weeks ago we had the breakout. Or was it last week? Yeah, that was actually last week. So yeah, nice breakout last week out of that descending channel. Price has been looking very, very fatigued, very tired. Again, when we're moving in this descending channels, ascending channels, they're a very good sign of a market that is tiring and potentially getting ready to reverse or at least pull back substantially. And that's kind of what we've had here with dollar CAD. I'm still very bearish as a whole in the market. I think long term, we've still got room to the downside. I'm looking at these major highs, 1, 2. I'm looking for a third one to form. I'm looking at support here, and I'm looking at support here as potentially areas which we could pull back into and continue selling. And of course, targets naturally back down at the prior low. But yesterday we spoke about the retest here because I still do expect more upside. If I'm expecting price to sell from these areas, well, we've got to get there first. And price has done a pretty good job at respecting that prior high and used it as support pretty well. Nice rejection on the 4-hour chart. So again, naturally, I do think dollar CAD still got room to rally. But as soon as we come back into 1.405, I'll start to change that bias and start to look for some shorts. And of course, if this area doesn't really hold and doesn't really give me the price action I'm after, then I do have that zone slightly above it. So these are the big swings I'm looking for dollar CAD, not too far away. In terms of the buys, unless you're already in the position, I think this the ship is sailed there unless we come back down to retest it. And I don't think this is the best place for entries anyway. But yeah, dollar CAD, I think we still got a bit more upside left. Aussie dollar looks like it's struggling at the highs there. Again, not the cleanest price action you ever see. We had this ascending channel, which price looked like at one point was going to break to the downside, but failed. Had another rally to the upside, but looks like it failed at the highs again. I still do think Aussie dollar has that room to the downside to drop. I'm still very bullish long term with Aussie dollar. I want to see price come back to these areas here, 0.625, anywhere between 0.62 and 0.63 really. But this is kind of the zone I'm looking for price to push back into to potentially try and catch a higher low and see if I can swing it back into resistance. I'm looking at potentially a big inverse head and shoulder pattern. There's your left shoulder, there's your head, there's potentially your right shoulder, and of course, expecting a lot more upside from then onwards. But really what I like about it is the V-shaped pattern. Strong sell, strong buy. Typically, we look to continue in the favor of the buys there. So, Aussie dollar, very corrective. I think there's still room to the downside. Difficult to short. I'm not really seeing any good opportunities to short this one. I spoke briefly about some shorts at the high there. It seems to play out pretty well, but I wasn't looking for any entries, and I definitely not looking for any entries at the moment. So yeah, Aussie dollar expecting a bit more downside, but I am very keen on the buys. Ends the USD, nice reaction yesterday. We pushed back down as well. So it looks like we're struggling at the highs there too. Again, I still think the bigger move for ends the USD is still to the upside. So I'm looking to see if we can come back down and have a deeper test of some of these levels here. Potentially maybe a double bottom could entice me to a trade there. Again, I'm not as much of a fan of ends the USD as I am of Aussie dollar, but if I see really good rejection there, I probably will have a go at this one because I am very much looking at this kind of price action here as just a correction for price to continue that momentum. So very, very bullish on this one. If you can see some really good rejection at the lows, basically at that zone, that to me looks like a nice trade for a big swing, and of course targets naturally back at the highs, and expecting new highs after that as well. In terms of gold was very bearish yesterday. Nope, that's silver. Gold was very bearish yesterday. Pushed to the downside very aggressively, took out the lows, and we were expecting that. I believe we were trading around here yesterday, and I said I do think price is probably going to fall, because we did fail to make higher highs over here. It's not like price is coming from new highs. We're coming from lower highs in comparison to the all-time high. So it's a sign that gold is tiring, but nothing significant yet. You know, I'm still looking at this this channel here price is creating. I'm still looking at this resistance here as well. I think if we could see a nice shift in momentum here, this actually could be a really nice place for a buy for gold, and potentially at least swing it back to the midpoint of the range, which is this line here, potentially back to the high of the channel, and of course potentially a breakout to the highs and beyond as well. Gold for me is still very much a bullish market on the higher time frames. This potentially could just be a retracement for us to continue. And yeah, we're coming to a very strong area of confluence, you know, retesting the prior high as well as the lows of the channel. So if we are going to buy for gold, if gold is going to push and continue this uptrend, well, here is where I would expect it to happen. So if we could see momentum continue, we had a very strong bearish candle into that zone, a nice wick and an okay close there on the 4-hour candle, which is closed, but I need to see a lot more momentum to really indicate that potentially price is about to reverse from here. But I think it's a solid area. It really depends on gold whether we see a massive follow through or it's just a reaction for a day or two before we roll over. You know, either could happen there. It just comes down to how you want to manage that position. But I think this is a nice area to keep an eye out for some longs. And then on to silver, which again, not a big fan of. I suppose we've come back into support, so it's not the worst place in the world to take a buy for silver, because essentially this is just consolidation to me. So I wouldn't really do anything here with silver, to be honest, other than look to buy and call the bottom and call the tops. I'm not a big fan of the price action on silver as a whole. It's just a very, very corrective market. If I zoom out, you can see what price is doing. It's just incredibly flat, so I wouldn't do anything with it, to be honest. I do think long-term silver is likely to take out these highs and continue, but just difficult to find some entries to actually trade that, or at least that fit my plan anyway. But yeah, it's at support well. We could rally from there. Personally, I'm looking at 29 and 31 as areas where potentially if we could pull back into, I'll be more interested to find some buys. At the moment, I feel like we can catch a nice reaction, but I wouldn't be looking for anything crazy. Maybe back to some areas up here. That might be a decent trade there. But yeah, that's about it for silver. Just staying up to date with the price action, but not really looking for entries until we at least get back down to some of these levels.